There are two things that are very popular right now in the coding space. Number one, it is live streaming while vibe coding or vibe coding while live streaming. It's all in the same thing. I did it for 71 straight days, actually 71 days. It wasn't straight days because I took off weekends and a couple of days in between, but 71 days, you have to bring energy and fun and enthusiasm and something new. The second thing I see on the way out is actually paying for ADEs, which a lot of these people, including myself, I tried to ship one out. I failed miserably. You can see that in one of my 71 days, which are towards the end of the 71 days. And I could see that also on the way out. And I'm going to talk about why this is not theory. This is not something that I wish upon anyone. I just see it as an area that people have to discuss and be objectively realistic. Let's first talk about vibe coding in general. Vibe coding takes a lot of energy, okay? It takes a lot of enthusiasm. It takes a new product or something that no one's ever heard of, or at least you put your own spin on your own product. And on top of that, you have to show up every single day. So you have to be consistent with the way that you're actually showing up, the same music, the same style, the same background, what you're actually building. Because if it was all over the place every single time, it's kind of like a DJ, but then they're going from this to this to this, and then you don't know what they're actually doing. So it does take a lot of skill to be doing this. Okay, I have a lot of respect, first of all, for all the people that are vibe coding, number one. Number two is anyone that shows up for more than 30 to 60 days, once you go beyond that, now you're really hitting a threshold. With vibe coding live, it's very different than vibe coding. Okay, I'm talking about live streaming vibe coding. I see that on the way out. The reason being is I came to the conclusion about a week ago where I said, what is my time worth? What is my time, especially in the morning? And I'm going to mix in some personal development because that's my background when it comes to this. But your time in the morning is the most valuable part of the day, okay? Especially right when you wake up. That is, what do you do when you first wake up? Okay, I get a cup of coffee, I go to the bathroom, I go work out, I get dressed. Now I'm focused. Now we go into something called deep work, and that's by Cal Newport. Cal Newport has a great book out there called Deep Work. Highly recommend the book. And he says, you have focus time of about 2 hours when you first start waking up in the morning. When you wake up in the morning, your time in the morning for 2 hours is the most valuable part of the day. That's when you ship the most important things. When you are spending your time in the morning for 2 hours vibe coding, and you are essentially, and I hate to say this for other people, when you are entertaining others, you're not actually doing deep work. You're not doing deep work. You're doing deep work for other people. You're entertaining other people. And to be honest, most of the people that you are doing deep work for, deep work is focused, uninterrupted, no distractions, looking at a problem, looking at something, finding a solution, and your sole focus is really just about three things. And to be honest, you have your number one thing, your number one goal for that day. It would be nice if you got to 2 and 3, but this is your main focus. Every single day, you have your top priority. For me today, it was making sure that I am shipping an app that has the data from my website onto the app and the desktop. Though both of them need to have the actual, it was nice, it was beautiful and everything else. The mock data needs to go, and the real data from our actual community needs to come in. We did that. It looks terrible now. However, that was my number one thing. Okay, now I have to go and polish it. UI needs to get better, UX. Okay, anyway, enough about me. What was the conclusion I came to after last week? And I said, I can't do this anymore. I can do this, by the way, I can do this. But the problem that I was seeing is if I'm spending 2 hours, and let's just go high math on this. Okay, I spend 2 hours, and they usually say 2,000 hours is roughly your salary. So in other words, if you make $100,000 and you divide it, you're worth about $50. I think that's back of the hand math, blah, blah, blah. Put that there. Yeah. So you're worth $50 an hour. If you make 100,000, because that's working time. You take off for weekends, you take off for vacation, you take off for holidays. So if you work 2,000 hours and you're getting paid for 2,000 hours and 2 hours of your day. So that means literally 1,000 of that time is dedicated to other people. You are really relying on other people to be paying you, with nobody really paying you in super chats or potentially even in the live stream or in any kind of subscription, then you are relying right here, your 2,000 hours of the year, you're relying to make $50 an hour, which means that every time you go live, you should at least be making $100 at minimum, at minimum. Okay. I think I'm doing okay. So at least during that live stream time, you're making at least $100. So say you go 2 hours. For most live streamers, they're going 3 hours a day. So that means it's 150 hours. I'll talk about the math in a second, times 5 days a week. So they should be doing $750 a week. Okay. During their live stream. In other words, if you make $50 an hour and you go live streaming every single day, for 3 hours, you make $150 while you're live streaming. I'm not talking about anything else. While you're live streaming, and then, so that means $150 while you're live streaming times 5, which I think I'm doing the math right, is $250 a week while you're live streaming. If you are not making that, then you will not make $100,000 a year. Okay. This is very important because during that time, you have to understand where's your marketing? Where's your time? Where is your energy? Because once I was done with the live streaming, the number one thing I had to do was just literally take a break and turn my brain off because you're talking for 3 straight hours. Now that I've actually stopped the live streaming and entertaining people for 3 hours and I focused my time, and I have shipped more and better stuff over the last week than I did for 71 days. Again, we can sit here and literally take full accountability that it was my fault, which it is. I did not do a good job on live streaming, potentially. I did not do a good job on coding. Yes, I agree. I did not do a good job on building. I agree. However, those that are out there, you can even look at all those that are out there. How much are they making? Not the ones that are established developers. Not the ones who already have a product. I'm talking about the people who literally started from day 0 and day 0 on a product. I'm not talking about people who have a product already. I'm not talking about the people that already are this unbelievable developer and you're kind of learning from Boris or Dario or Sam Altman, or like, you're learning from somebody who can entertain. If it was Boris, the founder of Claude Code, I don't care if he even says a word. I just want to see how he codes, okay? We're talking about newbies who understand the basics of coding and design and understand how to entertain and bring in an audience, okay? So for me, the way that I look at it is, where is your time going? Where is your time best spent? This has nothing to do about vibe coders. This has nothing to do about trashing anyone else at any time. It's literally focusing your first 2 hours of the day, which are literally the most important part of your day. The 2 hours in the morning is the most important part of your day. You have to go into deep work. If your deep work is literally entertaining others, you're never going to come to the conclusion of making $750 a week during vibe coding. I'm not saying after hours. I'm not saying marketing. I'm not saying paid advertising. I mean, during the marketing stream. Okay. So that's the first thing, is where's your time going? I'm about to go deeper into this because a lot of these folks that are creating something are creating an ADE. An ADE, agentic development environment, is something that is now a dime a dozen. Okay. It is free by all of the frontier models. It's free by a lot of open source models. It's free all over the place, number one. Number two is, what I noticed is that you can't just ship an ADE. You got to ship a lot of value on top of that. A lot of value. So if this is the ADE, it cannot be the most important thing. It actually has to be flipped, where the value is well above the ADE. And to be honest, I think the ADE is something that is on the side. So for me, what I noticed is that the number one thing that people are lacking during this time is the understanding of their deep work. And then I thought about, hey, listen, why do I have to go to all these different apps? And listen, someone's going to do a better job on what I'm actually creating. 100%. I agree. People with deeper pockets, people that are smarter, people that have 4 or 5 people working on instead of just one person. But I said, they obviously have coined it over at, you can even say Microsoft, where they're like, we're going to launch a super app. Or I've talked about it. Why doesn't Google do this? Google has so many things. I have to download Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Drive, Google Maps, Google Search, Google Mail, Google everything just to use each of their Google products. I have 7 or 8 of their, I'm like, why is that just not one application? I understand you silo the teams off. I understand that each of them have to work on it individually and it comes together and everything else. But you already have the underlying base layer of the database, and I'm logged in as this one email, and you're siphoning me off to all these other apps. Why don't you do what Microsoft talked about, which is a super app? Why doesn't Apple do something called, you already are on everybody's iOS. Of course, there's Chrome and you have Pixel and you got the other Apple, or I'm sorry, the other person that's actually going against Apple, and I'm not in the realm, so you can call it how it is. However, why doesn't Apple do this? Why doesn't Google do this? Why doesn't Microsoft do this? Why doesn't the people who have the device, they have the software, they have the users, they have the compute, they have the servers, they have the storage, they have the data, they have everything, the data, they have everything. Why are they not creating the super app, which is essentially, and this is what is going to go back to the ID or the IDE, doesn't matter, but you have an inbox, you have the calendar, you have your docs in here, you have your drive, you have your tasks, you have your I already said calendar. You already have your tasks. You have your CRM. That's what I was going to say before. You have your CRM. You have your checklists. You have everything within one location, and essentially they're little areas at the bottom and then maybe a menu up here, and then you click and then you have today. Why is this not getting built? This is what I'm thinking. But on top of this, someone's going to build this and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be $5 a month and it's going to be unbelievable. It might be Chinese. It might be American. I have no idea. It might even be open source and then people are ripping off of it and it will be incredible. That's what I'm building, because I noticed even if I get an ADE, someone will be better with the ADE. Even if the gentleman Bridgemind comes out with his own ADE, he needs to monetize his community some other way, because you can see that ADEs are literally trending in everyone's direction when it comes to frontier models. I was literally today offered with a little pop-up at the bottom of every chat, take this on the go. I pressed it and then it went automatically into my cell phone for Claude Code. Claude Code immediately went into my Claude, and then it gave me a notification done. So then when I was going to get coffee, I literally saw the exact chat that was on my computer. Well, obviously that's going to be for ChatGPT. That's going to be for Qwen. That's going to be for GLI, doesn't matter. Every single person who's putting out any kind of actual coding environment is going to have some frontier CLI that everyone is relying on for that. Bringing it together, yes, that's very impressive. You have VS Code, which I use. Obviously, I have the desktop and everything else, but you have to bring value on top of just the ADE. I personally believe it's the super app, and I personally believe on top of that, it is a community. And guess who is the head of the community? The actual vibe coder, the actual person who's coding. No more is there a person that you don't know about. Who actually made this popular? You could say that it was Steve Jobs, it was Bill Gates, it was Elon Musk, it was Jeff Bezos, where you actually finally put a face to the name. You don't know who runs Nestle, you don't know who runs Procter & Gamble, you don't know who runs, yeah, of course you know the banks because they're out there, but nobody really knew, say, Adobe CEO like this. Nobody really knew, well, maybe you do know that Mark Benioff is the CEO of Salesforce, because I use Salesforce, but if you ask the regular person, they know that Steve Jobs did Apple, that Bill Gates did Microsoft, that Elon Musk did Tesla, okay? There is a synonymous person to the name. That is going to be the future, and that's going to be the community based around whoever the vibe coder is. So in the conclusion of this, and I know I just ranted about a lot of things on this, but I'm going to bring this all together about where I see the actual work on the coding front. Number one is your morning as a vibe coder is going to be, first of all, it's going to be spent in deep work. And number two, it is going to be distraction free. Okay. So whatever your time is, personally, I think it's 9 to 11 a.m. or maybe even 8 to 10 a.m. You are distraction free and you're in deep work and you're working on your number one thing. You're not going and you're not entertaining. You're not putting energy into something else. You're not pouring into someone else. It's going to sound selfish. However, what I've noticed in the last week is this allows me at 3:07 p.m. on a Friday when New York City is completely dead, that I can go and start shooting a video that is roughly 20 minutes long. And then by the end of it, I can put it out onto YouTube and say, listen, this is the future. Deep work, vibe coding by yourself, distraction free. And then number three, if you have the time, say this is lunchtime, you take a walk. Maybe you think about some problems. Maybe things happened during your actual deep work. During this, which is about 15, 30 minutes during that work, you either move on to number two or you continue with number one and you don't stop until number one is done. That is the future. Okay. As much as I want to say ADEs are the future, as much as I want to say live streaming and vibe coding is the future, is that vibe coding, to be honest, it's in, but not live streaming, not from starting from zero, not from having no product to a product, not building an ADE. That's gone. Okay. There's not enough people that desire that product right now. And to be honest, people that desire a community, yes, but people that desire a community in which they pay for is gone. So to be honest, I think the only way forward is to have a super app. I think that's the only way forward. Unless you have a really, really good product like Seedance, or you have a really, really good product like Search, or you have a really, really good fast product or a safe product like Cloudflare. In other words, you can do a lot of things like Cloudflare is doing, but their main focus is knowing that safety and security is their main driver of business. If I go to Google, I know it's fast and the results are good. If I go to Claude or OpenAI, they're going to be good at coding. If I go to any other product, say, Microsoft Docs, is that better than regular docs on my computer, better than Google Docs? What about me creating my own docs? To be honest, I think that's the future. You just create whatever you want. I need a thumbnail creator. I used to use vidIQ. I don't anymore. I used to film my videos on Riverside.com. I'm now moving away from that. I used to use Salesforce CRM. I'm moving away from that. I used to have Squarespace. I moved away from that. MailChimp for email. I moved away from that. In other words, the future is moving to a collection or an aggregation of software ideas, an aggregation of value. So if you resonated with this video, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I have no idea. But I do see a lot of trends. I'm very good at trends. I'm very good at macro trends. I was not treated too amazing when I announced I'm done with live streaming because, to be honest, I was a pretty good live streamer. I was bringing in a lot of value about the news, about energy, about production, about where we're going. What does this news mean? What does that news mean? And kind of bringing a overarching macro picture on top of these micro little maybe dramas that are happening every single day that people are obsessed with, that maybe you see on X or you see on TikTok, which I'm at none of them. So if you like this, then subscribe to the videos. Let me know your comments. And of course, as always, stick around because personal development while going into coding, while keeping fit and being growth mindset is the future. No more of the guys that show up on stage looking at Bill Gates or looking at Steve Jobs back in the day. It's guys, they go to the gym. They're into growth mindset. They're into actually bettering themselves. They're not drinking. They're not going into drama. They're not caring about all the things that are online. They actually care about making good products and good designs. They also care about treating themselves and others with respect. And I'm talking about their body, their mind, their soul, everything. So stick around for those videos. Have a great day. I'll talk to you guys later.